My husband was
Your Honor,
smiling in
based on
open
the evidence
court,
presented, we
not the
firmly
nervous
believe the
smile people
charges
wear
against
when
my
they're
client
hoping. The
Therefore,
other
the
one, the
prosecution has
confident curve
failed
of a
to meet the
mouth that
burden of
believes
proof
the ending has
required.
already
I
been
stand by my
decided, and you're
testimony.
just here to
It is
watch yourself
crucial that we
lose.
address these systemic issues
The courtroom
immediately.
smelled
Based on
like
the
old
discovery
paper and
provided, we have
disinfectant
sufficient
that never
grounds to
quite
dismiss the
masks
charges
fear.
outright.
We
Fluorescent
have a
lights buzzed
responsibility to the
overhead,
people who
steady
elected
as a
us to
lie.
pass this legislation.
Darius
It is
Fields
time.
sat at the petitioner's table in a charcoal suit that fit him like entitlement. His lawyer's folders were stacked with the neatness of a man who loved control. Behind them, my mother-in-law, Yvonne Fields, leaned back with her purse locked between her hands, satisfied in the way only a person who thinks her family name is armor can be. 2 rows behind, Brielle Vaughn crossed her legs and let out a soft laugh, quiet enough to pretend it was accidental, loud enough to make sure I heard it. They all looked at me like I was a lesson. I sat alone at the respondent's table, shoulders back, hands folded on top of a plain folder. No jewelry that could be called a statement, no mascara that might run. If the room wanted a woman about to shatter, I gave it a blank surface. Inside my folder, under the paperwork everyone expected, responses, financial forms, lists of what I allegedly didn't contribute, rested a sealed envelope. Thick, quiet, labeled in my attorney's precise handwriting. It looked ordinary on purpose. Ordinary things get ignored every day. The clerk called the case, chairs scraped. A soft murmur rolled across the benches, that strange blend of pity and entertainment that shows up when a marriage turns into procedure. Then the doors opened. Judge Randall Mercer entered with the tired neutrality of someone who has heard every excuse pride can invent. Everyone stood. "Be seated," he said. And when we sat, the room exhaled. Darius's attorney stood first. "Your Honor," he began, voice smooth as polished stone, "this is a straightforward dissolution. My client has provided full disclosure. The respondent has no documented employment during the marriage, no accounts in her name, and no demonstrable contribution to the assets at issue. We request the court move toward final judgment." He didn't say my name. He had reduced me to the respondent, like I was an object to be disposed of. Darius smiled while the words were said, as if the sentence itself was a gift. Brielle's mouth curled again. Yvonne's eyes stayed fixed on the judge, already collecting victory. My attorney, Simone Hale, rose next. Simone didn't perform outrage. She spoke the way you speak when you're holding a knife and you don't need to wave it. "Your Honor," she said, "efficiency requires accuracy. We are not seeking delay for its own sake. We are seeking to correct the record. There are material inconsistencies between earlier disclosures and the revised disclosures now before the court." Darius's lawyer scoffed softly. "Fishing expedition," he said. "There's no credible showing." Judge Mercer tapped his pen once. "I will decide what's credible," he said. His gaze moved from counsel to counsel, then rested on Darius, then on me. Not sympathetic, measuring. He granted a narrow extension. 2 weeks, not a win, but not the clean ending Darius came for. Court adjourned. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. Outside the courtroom, the corridor was colder and louder. Footsteps echoed off tile. Darius walked a few steps ahead of me with his lawyer, laughing now, big and careless, like he was already telling someone what he planned to do with his money. Yvonne followed him like a shadow with pearls. Brielle drifted toward me near the elevators, as if she'd rehearsed the angle. Her perfume arrived before she did. Sweet at first, then sharp, like flowers left too long in heat. "Imani," she said softly, as if we were friends. Simone's hand touched my elbow. A quiet check-in. I answered with stillness. Brielle smiled. "You look composed." "I feel composed," I said. She laughed. "You know this ends the same way. Dragging it out doesn't change the numbers." "It changes the record," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "You think you have something?" I met her gaze. "I think you should be careful what you assume." Brielle's smile hardened. "Oh, honey, I'm not the one on trial." "That's what everyone thinks," I said. The elevator dinged. Brielle's hand tightened around her phone. She stepped back, irritation flickering under her polish, then turned away and slipped into Darius's orbit like she belonged there. Simone leaned toward me as we walked. "Don't engage," she murmured. "People who think they've won always talk. Let them." I nodded. Talk was exactly what I needed. In the garage, before we reached Simone's car, I felt the eyes again. Strangers, clerks, a couple of lawyers who didn't know my name but recognized the posture of a woman being pushed out of her life. I kept walking anyway. My heels clicked a steady metronome on the concrete, and every click sounded like a countdown. I reached into my bag and touched the sealed envelope through the fabric. The paper edges were crisp. The seal was intact. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like gravity, quiet, patient, unavoidable. Simone had drilled procedure into me. Log it, label it, protect it. Don't show it until the moment matters. Courts don't reward emotion. They reward clean chains of custody. Darius didn't understand that. He wanted me loud so he could call me irrational. He wanted me messy so his lawyer could call me untrustworthy. He wanted my heartbreak on the record, not his. What he didn't account for was how carefully I listened. I listened to the way Brielle said my name like she owned the syllables. I listened to the way Yvonne said security, like it was something you could hand out and take back. I listened to the way Darius's lawyer used no contribution, as if love and labor don't leave fingerprints. And underneath all of it, I listened for the tiny cracks, the places where arrogance made them careless. In 2 weeks, they would return with the same story. Business trip, clean numbers, harmless friendship, nothing to see. And I would return with secret affair evidence that didn't care about their confidence. Timestamps, device IDs, Marina fees, and patterns a forensic accountant can read like a map. I didn't need them to confess. I just needed them to keep believing I couldn't prove it. Not today. But soon enough, either. As Simone drove me away, the city looked normal. People carrying grocery bags, a bus hissing to a stop, a dog tugging at a leash. Normal life moving around the edges of my divorce like it was weather. The first time I saw the cruise photo, it looked normal too. Betrayal rarely arrives with the thunder. Most of the time it slides into your life like an ad, shiny and casual, as if it has every right to be there. It was a Tuesday night, 2 months before court. Darius was traveling for business again. That meant his calls went to voicemail, his location was unavailable, and the house sounded bigger than it should have. I was at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee I didn't want, scrolling without thinking. Then the picture appeared. A yacht, white and clean under a soft pink sky. 2 champagne flutes in the foreground. And in the center, my husband, arm around Brielle Vaughn. Her head leaned toward his shoulder like it belonged there. His smile was wide and private, the kind of smile he used to give me before he learned I would accept less. The caption read, "New Beginnings." For a moment, my mind tried to protect me. It offered bandages. It's old. It's a work event. It's staged. Then my eyes moved to the corner of the frame and found a Marina sign. Blue lettering. A little seahorse logo. I knew that sign. Months earlier, when we were still pretending we were a team, Darius and I had driven past that marina on a Saturday. He'd nodded toward the docks and joked about buying a boat one day. I laughed and said, "When we can afford it." He smiled and said, "We can afford more than you think." At the time, I heard confidence. Now it sounded like a confession. My first instinct was to call him and demand words, to do the loud human thing people expect from a betrayed wife. I didn't. Instead, I took a screenshot, then another. Then I zoomed in, not on his face, but on details. The marina sign, the horizon line, the reflection in his sunglasses. I saved everything. 10 minutes later, the photo vanished. When I refreshed, it was gone. The account went private, the caption erased like it had never existed. But I had it. And once you have something like that, your body changes. The kitchen felt colder, your thoughts become orderly. Like a filing cabinet. Darius worked in corporate development. He could talk for an hour and make you believe he'd said something concrete. He used that skill on me. At first, his control came wrapped in affection. "Let me handle the bills," he'd say. "It's easier." Over time, my access narrowed. Passwords changed. Statements stopped arriving. He called it simplifying. Yvonne called it structure. I called it love because the alternative would have required action. Then Brielle showed up as a consultant. She laughed too hard at his jokes. She stayed too late after meetings. She looked at me with the bright calm of a woman already rearranging someone else's life. When I finally confronted Darius, he didn't deny it. He didn't apologize either. "This marriage isn't working," he said calmly, like we were discussing a scheduling conflict. "And I'm not going to pretend anymore." Yvonne stood behind him, arms crossed, already aligned. Brielle waited in the hallway, not even pretending to stay away. After that, things moved fast. Papers, locks, accounts. The first sign was my bank card declining at the grocery store. Not because we were broke, because my access had been shut off. The cashier tried again with polite impatience. Declined. People behind me sighed. I left my cart and walked out without looking back. When I got home, the password to our joint account no longer worked. When I asked Darius, he didn't flinch. "We're restructuring," he said, like we were a business. "Restructuring what?" I asked. "Our situation," he replied. "You'll be fine, Imani." Yvonne walked into our living room that same evening as if she'd been invited by fate. "Not everyone gets this kind of security," she said, smiling sweetly. "You've been lucky." Security, I realized, was what they called a cage when it had pretty furniture. I didn't scream. I didn't beg for access to what was already mine. I packed a bag, took my laptop, and walked out of that house without asking permission. Darius watched me from the hallway, eyes narrowed. "You don't have proof of anything," he said, voice low, confident. I paused at the door. "I know," I said. His smile returned. "And my lawyer will make sure the court understands that." I looked at him over my shoulder. "Good," I said softly, "because I want the court to understand everything." Then I left. 2 days later, I sat in Simone Hale's office and told her the truth in plain sentences. The cruise photo, the disappearing caption, the locked accounts, the speed of the erasure. Simone listened, then asked one question that changed the shape of my thinking. "Tell me about the Marina," she said. "The photo is gone," I replied. She nodded. "But you took a screenshot." "Yes." "Good," she said, "because a husband cheating on a cruise is messy. But a business trip lie tied to money is traceable. Trips leave trails. Hidden assets in divorce leave trails too. We're not going to argue louder. We're going to prove deeper." That was when she warned me. The quiet phase is the most dangerous. It looks like surrender. It isn't. Now, with the courthouse behind me and 2 weeks ahead of me, I sat at my small apartment's kitchen table and opened my laptop. The apartment was intentionally unimpressive. A neighbor's TV laughter leaked through the wall like fake comfort. I created a folder on my desktop and named it, simply, Timeline. I dropped the screenshot inside. Then I added a second file. Notes, because if Darius thought he could start over with Brielle, he wasn't going to do it with empty pockets. And if he thought he could erase me from the record, he was going to learn what records do when you treat them like optional truth. The next time I walked into court, they would laugh again. They would call me dependent. They would call me dramatic. They would call me a woman with nothing. And I would let them. Because the moment people are certain you're finished is the moment they stop guarding their lies. Before we dive into what I did next, before the Marina security footage, before the receipts, before the phone logs that turned new beginnings into a public record, tell me something. Where are you watching from? And what time is it in your city right now? And if you enjoy powerful stories about justice, resilience, and quiet strength, stories of a cheating husband who thinks he's untouchable until the evidence says otherwise, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and stay with me. You won't want to miss what happens next. The truth is, I didn't walk into that courthouse as a brand new woman. I walked in as someone who had been studying a slow crime for years, the kind that doesn't leave bruises, only missing pieces. From the outside, people would have told you Darius and I were solid. Midlife love, stable, quiet. We met at a fundraiser in our early 40s, both of us dressed up and pretending we weren't tired. He had that polished laugh that made strangers feel chosen. I was the woman who always showed up on time, who remembered birthdays, who signed up to help even when my hands were already full. He told me I was safe. I thought he meant loved. Back then, he wasn't loud with control. He was gentle with it. He offered to carry things. Then he offered to carry decisions. Then, one day, I realized I hadn't held anything important in a long time. "Let me handle the finances," he said the first year we were married, like he was offering to take out the trash. "You've got enough on your plate." I worked. Not the kind of job that comes with applause, but the kind that keeps the world upright. Administration for a medical office, long hours, short gratitude. Still, I contributed. I paid into the life we built. I managed our household like a second job. If partnership has a spine, I was half of it. But Darius had a talent. He could make your labor feel like it happened in the background, like air. Necessary, invisible, uncredited. The first time I asked to see the accounts, he smiled and kissed my forehead. "Baby, why would you stress yourself with that?" he said. "It's all handled." It sounded like care. It was training. His mother, Yvonne, loved training too. Yvonne Fields didn't move through rooms like a guest. She moved like a title. Pearls, crisp lines. That controlled smile women wear when they've learned to win without raising their voices. The first dinner I had at her house, she watched me cut my chicken like I was taking a test. "You're very quiet," she said, as if quiet was a flaw that needed correcting. I laughed politely. "I'm just listening." Yvonne leaned back. "Listening is fine. But in this family, we speak with authority." Darius squeezed my knee under the table, a warning disguised as affection. "Don't challenge her. Don't make it hard." I didn't challenge her. I wanted peace. I wanted belonging. I wanted to believe love could smooth out sharp people. Yvonne started with little comments that sounded like advice. "You'd look younger with brighter colors." "You should let Darius lead. Men need that." "Don't ask too many questions. It makes you look uncertain." Then the comments became rules. She didn't say, "I don't like you." She said, "You're lucky." Lucky. That word drifted through my marriage like cheap perfume. Lucky to have a man who provided. Lucky to have a family name that opened doors. Lucky to have security. Security, I learned, is what people call control when they want you to thank them for it. Darius's career grew, or at least it looked like it did. Titles changed. Business trips multiplied. He began talking about asset protection and smart structuring, as if marriage was a corporation and I was a temporary employee. When I asked about a trip, he would answer with a fog of words. "It's a conference. It's a meeting. It's a thing I can't get out of." And because I was taught to be reasonable, I became reasonable. I stopped pushing. I stopped asking. I stopped noticing how often the answer was later. Then Brielle Vaughn entered our story wearing confidence like a new coat. Darius called her a consultant, just for a quarter, someone helping with brand strategy for a project he'd been excited about. She showed up at a charity event on his arm without warning, smiling like she'd been invited by the universe. She was younger than me by a decade, maybe more, not in an obvious way, but in the way she moved, fast, assured, like consequences were for other people. She shook my hand with both of hers, warm and overfamiliar. "I've heard so much about you," she said. It sounded harmless until I realized Darius hadn't been saying my name at home in weeks. Brielle started appearing in small ways first. A late call that ended when I walked into the room. A work dinner that ended at midnight with the faint scent of hotel soap on Darius's collar. When I asked about that scent, he didn't get angry. He got amused. "You watch too many shows," he said. "Not everything is a scandal." He made doubt sound childish. He made suspicion sound embarrassing. He made me feel like the villain for wanting clarity. One night, Months before the cruise photo, I came downstairs for water and heard Darius on the phone in the study. His voice was low, careful. "Not in her name," he said. I froze on the stair. Silence. Then, "Yeah, keep it clean." The floorboard creaked under my weight, and his voice stopped instantly. When I entered, he was smiling, phone face down, like nothing had happened. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. I looked at his hands, calm, steady. Those were the hands he used to hold mine when he promised we'd be a team. "No," I said, "just thirsty." In bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to convince myself it meant nothing. It meant everything. By the time the cruise photo appeared, the marriage was already full of missing pieces. The photo didn't create the betrayal. It confirmed the pattern. After I saved it, after it vanished, I didn't confront him. Not yet. Simone would later tell me that was the first smart choice I'd made in years. Instead, I started rebuilding my own memory. I went through old emails and found Yvonne's fingerprints on everything. I looked at documents he'd slid across the table while dinner cooled. "Just sign, babe." It's boring. Boring is how people hide knives. The next time Darius came home from a business trip, he kissed me with the casual affection of a man who believes his life has compartments. There was salt in his hair, faint and telling, like ocean air. "Where'd you go again?" I asked lightly. He didn't even pause. "Baltimore," he said. But his suitcase had sand in the zipper seam. The cold part, the part that still makes my skin prickle when I tell this, is how normal it all looked. A husband cheating is dramatic in movies. In real life, it's paperwork and excuses and small adjustments that make you doubt your own senses. When I finally confronted him, it was almost quiet. I waited until the dishwasher was humming, the house wrapped in domestic noise like a blanket. "I saw something," I said. He looked up from his phone. "What?" "A picture," I said. "Of you and Brielle." His expression didn't change the way I expected. No panic, no scrambling, just a slow, calm inhale, like I'd asked him a question he'd already answered in his mind. "This marriage isn't working," he said, "and I'm not going to pretend anymore." I asked, "How long?" He shrugged. "Does it matter?" "And my accounts?" I asked. "We're separating things. That's normal," he said. "My access is gone." His smile returned, almost gentle. "You'll be fine." Then the front door opened. Yvonne came back in, keys in hand, like she'd been waiting for her cue. She looked between us and smiled with fake concern. "Oh, sweetheart," she said to me. "Don't do this to yourself. You've had a good run." A good run. Like I was a hobby he was done with. 2 days later, my card declined. 3 days later, the locks changed. A week later, Brielle posted another photo, 2 glasses again. This time in a restaurant I recognized from our anniversary. That's when fear turned into something colder. I moved into a small apartment near the edge of the city, the kind with thin walls and a parking lot that always smells like rain on hot asphalt. I bought groceries with cash. I stopped answering unknown calls. If anyone was watching, it would look like I was shrinking. I wasn't. I was becoming quiet on purpose. Most nights, I worked at that kitchen table under a single bulb that hummed like an insect trapped in glass. The radiator clicked. Somewhere above me, a couple argued in whispers that turned sharp, then soft again. I kept my own voice buried. I copied screenshots to a flash drive, backed them up twice, and wrote dates by hand because ink feels harder to erase. At a 24-hour print shop, the machine warmed my fingers while the clerk pretended not to notice my shaking. Simone texted short instructions: "Don't confront, document." When Dr. Malik Grant finally joined, he spoke like a mortician, calm, exact. "Hidden assets in divorce always leave a trail," he said. "Follow it." He named the Marina, and my stomach went cold. Because quiet women are expected to vanish. Vanished women don't show up with secret affair evidence. They don't show up with a husband cheating cruise photo saved in 2 places. They don't show up with a business trip lie timeline. They don't show up asking how a Marina fee got paid. When Simone asked me, Do you want revenge or do you want the truth? I surprised myself with how fast I answered. I want the truth on record, I said. Because revenge is loud and it fades. The record is forever. By the time the first hearing arrived, I had already started collecting the pieces I used to ignore. I pulled my own credit report. I listed every date he claimed he was traveling and matched it to anything that smelled like ocean: a charge, a call, a hotel, a gap. The timeline wasn't complete yet, but it was alive. And somewhere inside that timeline was a marina with a seahorse logo, a yacht under a pink sky, and my husband's smile, the kind that thinks nobody is watching. I was watching, and in part 3, I'll tell you how I proved it. People think betrayal arrives like thunder: a scream, a door slam, a suitcase on the porch. For me, it arrived like paperwork: quiet, deliberate, and designed to look ordinary. Part 3 begins after the courthouse, back in my small apartment, at 2:00 a.m., when the refrigerator clicks and the silence feels like it's watching. Not the peaceful kind of silence, the kind that reminds you the person who hurt you still believes he has keys to your life. Simone Hale taught me the rules like they were law. Rule 1, don't chase the story. Build the record. Rule 2, evidence has to be boring to be deadly. Rule 3, the louder they get, the calmer you become. We met twice a week in her office: frosted glass, gray carpet, a desk that held more endings than most people ever see. Simone didn't offer comfort. She offered steps. Start with dates, she said. A husband cheating on a cruise is a feeling. A business trip lie is a timeline. Timelines are admissible. She slid a legal pad toward me. Write every trip, every conference, every client meeting, every night he came home with hotel soap on his collar. I wrote until my hand cramped. Baltimore, Charlotte, Miami. One night. 2 days. Don't worry. Simone circled a cluster. He travels when you're busiest, she said, when you're least likely to follow. Then she said, now we verify. The first verification wasn't dramatic. It was receipts. Credit reports are diaries written by banks. They list what people tried to do while they were smiling in your face. I pulled mine and found inquiries I didn't recognize. An account under my maiden name, misspelled by one letter. Can he do that? I asked. He already did, Simone said. The question is whether we can prove intent. Intent became the shadow behind everything. Dr. Malik Grant joined us the next week. A forensic accountant, which is a polite way of saying he reads lies for a living. He shook my hand like I was a person, not a victim. Then he asked for the cruise photo. I opened my folder and showed him the screenshot. He didn't stare at Darius's smile. He stared at the edges. Metadata? He asked. It vanished, I said. I only have the screenshot. Screenshots still talk, Malik said. People forget the internet isn't a river, it's a swamp. Things sink. They don't disappear. He asked for every device I owned, every email I could still access, every shared login I could remember. He asked for permission to build a map: money, travel, access, patterns, before we ever asked the court for anything big. Courts reward clarity, Simone reminded me. One clean truth properly timed beats a pile of accusations. So we started with the Marina, the seahorse logo in the corner of that cruise photo. I drove past Seabright Marina on an afternoon that felt wrong for what I was doing. The gate had white posts like teeth, a keypad, a black camera lens that didn't blink. Boats rocked against the docks, ropes creaking, salt and gasoline in the air. Everything about it looked expensive and casual, which is exactly why people think they're invisible there. They're not. Gates log entries. Cameras keep time, slips are rented, fees are paid, trails are left. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and built a folder called Timeline. Under it, travel, money, devices, people. I backed it up twice, then wrote dates by hand in a notebook because ink feels harder to erase. During the day, I did my job like nothing had happened. I filed paperwork, answered calls, smiled at strangers. At night, I became precise. Malik emailed questions that sounded simple until you understood what they were. Needles? Do you have old statements? Any itineraries? Any proof of locks changing? Any witness who saw him with her? Witnesses are unreliable. People look away. Cameras don't. The first break came from something stupid. A loyalty program. Darius loved points the way some men love control. Years ago, he'd used my email as a recovery address because it was easier. When he cut off my access to everything else, he forgot that. The travel account showed history. Not all of it. Some trips were booked through corporate channels. But enough. A trip listed as Baltimore connected through a coastal airport. The date matched the cruise photo. When Malik saw it, his expression tightened. Anchors, he said. We anchor your story. Not feelings, facts. While we built, Darius performed. He told mutual friends I was unstable, obsessed, vindictive. He wanted a label on me before evidence labeled him. Brielle posted carefully, champagne flutes, blurred restaurants, the kind of images that say I won without saying it. She never tagged him. She didn't need to. The posts were for me. I saved every one. The first official hearing after the extension was procedural. Motions, objections, the slow machine of divorce court warming up. Darius arrived late on purpose, suit crisp, confidence thick. Brielle sat behind him with her chin lifted. Yvonne sat like a judge's judgment. Simone requested targeted discovery, communications tied to travel, account authorizations, and third-party access. Darius's attorney objected. Irrelevant. Harassment. Judge Mercer granted limited access anyway. Not a win, but a door cracked open. Outside the courtroom, Brielle drifted toward me near the elevators, perfume sweet at first, sharp underneath. You're embarrassing yourself, she said softly. I'm documenting, I replied. She laughed, brittle. You think you can handle what comes next? Yes, I said, and walked away. That night, the discovery arrived in pieces. Selected documents, cleaned up statements, polished explanations. Malik reviewed them and called Simone late. They're cleaning, he said. Not disclosing. Cleaning. Explain, Simone said. Revised statements replace prior data. Metadata shows files created after the dates they claim. Attachments missing. Travel receipts with gaps. And there's an authorization form with your client's name. Signature is close, but the rhythm is wrong. My jaw tightened. Forgery. Likely, Malik said. We confirm by pattern. Malik compared my known signatures to the authorization. He showed me line pressure, hesitation, rhythm. My real signature moved like my hand knew it. The forged one looked drawn. Simone asked one question. Can you say that under oath? Not yet, Malik said, but I can say it's inconsistent and requires explanation. So we didn't confront Darius. We waited for him to lock himself in. Simone filed a narrow motion, sworn affirmation of the revised disclosures due to inconsistency. Darius's side fought it. Judge Mercer granted it. If it's accurate, the judge said, affirming it shouldn't be burdensome. Darius smiled like he was untouchable. The night before his affirmation, he texted me. This doesn't have to get ugly. Walk away now and I'll make sure you're taken care of. It read like generosity. It meant, stop digging. I forwarded it to Simone. I didn't reply. Silence is harder to twist than words. The morning Darius affirmed, the courtroom felt tighter, like everyone sensed something but didn't know what. Are the disclosures complete and accurate? Simone asked. Yes, Darius said. Have you concealed, transferred, or reclassified marital assets to limit your spouse's claims? No. Have you authorized any transfer using your spouse's name without her consent? Darius glanced at me and smirked. No. That was the cage door closing. After court, he leaned toward me close enough for his cologne to feel like an insult. This ends soon, he whispered. One way or another. I kept my voice low. Yes, I said. It does. Now we subpoenaed the Marina. Simone kept it narrow. Gate logs for a short date range, invoice records for the slip, and security footage from the entrance camera during a specific 3-hour window. "We're not asking them to dig," she told me. "We're asking them to confirm." While we waited, Darius's confidence started behaving badly. Calls I didn't answer. Voicemails that sounded calm but carried pressure. Brielle went quiet online. Yvonne escalated through rumor and shame. Then the Marina records arrived. Simone spread the pages across her desk like a surgeon laying out instruments. Malik stood beside her, sleeves rolled up. The invoice came first. Slip rental paid by an LLC. The date matched the cruise photo. Malik tapped the LLC name. "Registered 3 months before the trip," he said. "Mailing address ties back to a suite your husband's firm uses." Simone flipped to the gate log. A list of keypad entries and card scans, each with a timestamp and an access card number. One number repeated. Again and again. Then Simone turned the page and slid the registration toward me. The access card belonged to Brielle Vaughn. The room went silent in a way that felt physical. Malik's voice stayed clinical. Access card, gate log, timestamp, chain. Simone didn't let me sit in the feeling. "Good," she said. "Now we hold it. We don't show them yet." "Why?" I asked, throat tight. "Because they'll invent explanations," she said. "We need them speaking first. Under oath. He already did. Now we move toward her." The security footage came as still frames. Marina's always claims storage is limited when it's convenient. But the frames were enough. A black SUV entering the gate. The license plate crisp. Registered to Darius. In the passenger seat, a woman turning. Hair, sunglasses, posture. Brielle. A still frame doesn't move, but it can still haunt. It freezes the moment you weren't meant to see and turns maybe into there. After we saw Brielle's name on that Marina access card, Simone changed the way she moved. Before, she had been careful. Now she was precise. "We're entering a phase where they'll try to scare you," she said. "Not with anything you can point to. With pressure. Noise. Little nudges meant to make you misstep." She was right. The week after the Marina records arrived, my phone started receiving messages from numbers I didn't recognize. "You should stop. This isn't worth it. You're going to lose anyway. No names, no direct threats. Just enough to make your skin prickle, like someone had breathed behind you in a dark hallway." I forwarded every message to Simone. She didn't react the way people do in movies. She labeled them, logged them, and said, "Good. That's desperation. Desperation makes people sloppy. Sloppy becomes evidence." Darius's desperation looked different in public. In the courthouse hallways, he performed calm. He joked with his lawyer. He laughed too loudly, the way men laugh when they want the room to believe they aren't afraid. But I started noticing the tells. He adjusted his cufflinks twice in the same minute. He checked his phone, then checked it again, then shoved it into his pocket like it had burned him. His smile arrived late, as if he had to think about which version to wear. Brielle's tells were louder. She stopped trying to look triumphant and started trying to look unimportant. Different outfits, less jewelry, softer makeup. Like she could dress her way out of the record. Yvonne tried to do what she always did, control the environment. One morning, an email arrived in my inbox with no subject. "He built you. He can break you." I saved the headers, printed it, circled the timestamp, and forwarded everything to Simone. Then I went back to work, smiling like nothing had happened. That night, Simone sat across from me and asked, "Do you still have access to the home Wi-Fi router?" I blinked. "Why?" "Because devices leave footprints," she said. "And your husband is a man who believes he's clever." I still had the router admin password because I had set it years ago, back when I was still useful in the household. Darius didn't change it because he didn't think of the router as a door. He thought of it as furniture. Malik pulled the logs and showed me a list of connected devices, dates, and times. He highlighted an unfamiliar device ID that connected repeatedly late at night, always when Darius claimed he was traveling. "That device," Malik said, "is likely a secondary phone, a burner, or a tablet used for communication he didn't want on his primary." "How do we prove it's his?" I asked. "We don't have to prove ownership yet," Simone said. We prove pattern, then we force explanation. Courts don't like unexplained patterns. We built that router evidence into the sealed envelope, not as the main strike, but as a supporting nail. Because a good case isn't one dramatic blow, it's a structure, one truth holding another truth in place until the lie has nowhere to lean. Darius's attorney filed objections to almost everything after that. He framed our requests as harassment, called Simone's strategy a fishing expedition, accused me, of trying to punish a man who was simply moving on. It would have been funny if it hadn't been so familiar. When men want to keep what they've taken, they call the person asking for it vindictive. Judge Mercer's patience thinned. He granted fewer favors, asked sharper questions, and began speaking in that short, flat tone judges use when they're tired of being managed. Meanwhile, Malik dug deeper into the money. He didn't just look for hidden assets in divorce. He looked for the shape of concealment, the kind of structure men build when they're planning a future without you. He found shell entities registered to service addresses. He found payments routed through 3 layers before returning under different labels. He found ownership that vanished on paper and reappeared under a relative's name. When he explained it, he used metaphors that felt like horror. Think of it like a house with hidden hallways, he said. You walk down one corridor and end up back where you started, but the walls moved while you were inside. He showed Simone a chart, colored arrows, boxes, dates. This is not accidental, Malik said. This is a strategy. Simone nodded. We don't call it a strategy in court, she said. We call it a pattern of deliberate misrepresentation. Words matter. Courts punish misrepresentation. They roll their eyes at betrayal. The other side sensed the shift. I could see it in how Victor, Darius's attorney, began speaking too fast, filling silences that didn't need filling. He stopped pausing for dramatic effect and started racing as if speed could outrun scrutiny. One afternoon after a hearing, Brielle approached me in the parking garage. The garage was dim, the kind of place where sound travels too far, and every footstep feels like it belongs to someone else. She waited until we were between rows, away from the main doors, then spoke low. You're taking this too far, she said. I stopped by my car, keys in my hand, but I didn't unlock the door yet. I made her stand in the open. Too far? I repeated. Brielle's face tightened. This was supposed to be clean, she said, and the word slipped out before she could catch it. Clean. Like a job. Like a plan. I watched her realize what she'd admitted. Her throat moved as she swallowed. I mean, she started. I know what you mean, I said calmly. You should talk to your own lawyer. Her eyes flashed. I don't need... Yes, I said. You do. Brielle took a step closer, then stopped, as if she remembered cameras existed even here. Her voice shook with anger that sounded like fear wearing a mask. He chose me, she said. That's not the win you think it is, I replied. Her laugh came out wrong. Too sharp. She turned and walked away fast, heels clicking unevenly, and the sound echoed behind her like a countdown. Simone loved that moment, not because she enjoyed Brielle's panic, but because Brielle had revealed something important. She believed there was a plan, and she believed she was protected by it. People who believe they're protected do careless things, like speak. The next careless thing happened in a courthouse hallway, and it wasn't even meant for me. Tanya Brooks, the clerk, had been organizing submissions when Brielle, impatient, anxious, muttered to Darius's attorney as she passed behind the benches. Daniel said the accounts were clean, she hissed. He promised. Tanya didn't turn her head. Clerks don't, but she heard it, and she wrote it down later, quietly, in the way court staff record oddities they don't fully explain. Simone learned about it a day later when Tanya was served with a routine subpoena related to exhibit handling. Tanya didn't volunteer gossip. She just answered questions carefully, and Simone, sharp as she is, caught the thread. When Simone told me, she didn't sound excited. She sounded relieved. Awareness, she said. That comment shows awareness. It strengthens admissibility later when we introduce coordination. Coordination was the word we used in our office. In court, it would become intent. As Malik's investigation expanded, he uncovered something that made my skin go cold in a different way. There wasn't just one forged authorization. There were multiple. Small transfers, medium transfers, a reclassification form, a document that moved my name onto a liability while moving his name off a benefit. My name, I said, staring at the pages. He used my name to carry the weight. Simone's voice was quiet. That's what people do when they believe the record is a costume, she said. They dress it the way they want. Malik ran the signatures through analysis again and again. The inconsistencies weren't random. They were consistent. The same hesitation. The same line breaks. The same unnatural pressure. Same hand, Malik said. Same method. And the device logs? Simone asked. Malik nodded. Some of these were executed digitally, he said, from a device registered to someone else. Brielle, the mistress, wasn't just present. She was operational. That's the moment I stopped thinking of her as a person who stole my marriage and started thinking of her as a person who helped steal my life. Simone prepared the sealed envelope after that, not because she liked drama, but because she respected procedure. The court had rules about when evidence could be introduced, how it could be logged, and how it could be preserved. A sealed exhibit, properly submitted, becomes a quiet promise. It says, when the time is right, the record will open, and the truth will not be a surprise. It will be documentation. We labeled the envelope, logged it, and filed it under the clerk's watchful eye. Tanya stamped it, recorded it, and slid it into the secure storage like she was putting away a storm. From that moment on, the envelope became a character in the courthouse. It followed me everywhere. Same label, same seal, same careful handling. People noticed, even if they pretended not to. Darius noticed too, eventually. Not the first time, not the second. But after enough hearings, he began watching my bag the way nervous people watch exits. He tried pressure again, but this time with a softer voice. He sent a message that looked almost tender. I don't want to hurt you. Let's settle. I didn't answer. Then he sent another. You're going to lose. Still no answer. The third message arrived after midnight. You don't understand what you're doing. That one made me smile, faintly, in the dark, because it revealed what he feared most. Not that I would take his money, that I understood him. Keisha called that week and asked, Are you okay? I looked around my apartment, folders on the table, my laptop open, a cup of cold coffee, the city humming outside like nothing mattered. I'm clear, I said. That's different than okay. Keisha exhaled. Clear is good, she said. Clear cuts clean. There was one more detail Malik found that didn't belong in a normal divorce file, and it felt like the kind of twist you hear in true crime podcasts when the narrator lowers their voice. A policy, not life insurance, something quieter. A key man policy tied to Darius's work, naming a trust I had never heard of. The trust's paperwork referenced my name as a spousal consent signature. The signature looked like mine from a distance. Up close, it had that same hesitant rhythm. Why would he need your consent here? Simone asked. To move value without disclosure, Malik said. To park it somewhere the court won't look unless we give it a reason. A reason. That was why Simone kept pushing for sworn affirmations. Every oath Darius took was a door he locked behind himself, and Darius felt the tightening. One evening, as I carried groceries up the stairs, I noticed something small and wrong. My apartment door wasn't fully shut, not open wide, just not sealed the way I left it. My pulse spiked, but I didn't rush inside. I stepped back, listened. No footsteps, no music, only the building's distant plumbing and the soft hiss of traffic. I called Simone. Don't go in, she said immediately. Call building security, call police if you need to, and document. Building security checked first. No one inside, nothing stolen. But a drawer in my kitchen had been opened and closed differently. The file folder where I kept copies. Still there, but shifted. Like someone had looked and decided not to take. That was the point. It wasn't theft. It was a message. I can reach you. Simone's voice stayed calm, colder than mine. Good, she said. Now we add intimidation to the timeline. That night, I slept with my phone on the pillow beside me and a lamp on. The light didn't make me feel safe. It just made the shadows honest. By morning, my fear had hardened into something steadier. If Darius wanted to turn this into a psychological game, then he would learn what Simone told me on day one. Courts don't reward intimidation. They punish it when you prove it happened. 2 days later, my case got its most chilling gift, a burner phone. It wasn't a dramatic discovery in a drawer. It was handed to me in a rainy parking lot by a man who looked like he regretted being honest. He was a valet from a hotel Darius used for client dinners. He recognized me, held up a black phone. I found this in a rental car, he said quickly. The company told me to toss it, but your name popped up on something and it felt wrong. My pulse thudded. Don't give it to me, I said immediately. He blinked. What? Give it to my lawyer, I said. Please! Simone's response was instant. Don't touch it. Don't turn it on. Bring him to my office, Echai. In her lobby, Simone bagged the phone with gloves. Malik photographed it, documented the valet's statement, logged chain of custody like we were handling a weapon. Because we were. Malik extracted the data in his lab. When Simone and I met him, he spoke in the same calm tone you use when the truth is unpleasant but final. There were location pings, a note labeled Marina code, a contact saved as B, text that read like two people who thought nobody was watching, photos, hotel mirrors, dinner plates, the yacht deck under a pink sky, and a screenshot of a bank transfer confirmation, the LLC paying the Marina fee. Darius hadn't just cheated. He'd structured the affair like a business, using entities and access and my name like tools. Simone looked at me. We still don't rush, she said. We let him testify again. Every lie adds weight. The next hearing was set for testimony. Darius wanted closure. His lawyer filed an expedited motion, claiming emotional distress and harassment, painting him as the reasonable man trapped by a vindictive spouse. Judge Mercer looked tired of games. When the record is clear, he said, the process ends. On the day of testimony, even the courthouse sounded different. Murmurs softer, footsteps sharper. Tanya Brooks, the clerk, met my eyes briefly as she logged exhibits. She'd seen my sealed submissions for months, noted their consistency, noted my calm. Darius took the stand. His lawyer guided him through the rehearsed story. I provided, she didn't contribute. She's emotional. She's delaying. Then Simone stood. She didn't accuse. She asked, Mr. Fields, you affirmed your disclosures are accurate. Yes. You affirmed you have not concealed assets. Yes. You affirmed you have not authorized transfers using your spouse's name without her consent. Yes. Simone nodded, then asked, Do you recognize the name Vaughn? Darius's eyes flicked toward Brielle. Yes, he said. Consultant. Have you taken personal trips with Ms. Vaughn? Simone asked. No, he said too fast. Never. So you are testifying under oath that you have never taken a personal trip with Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Simone turned slightly. Your Honor, I'd like to mark as Exhibit A a gate access log from Seabright Marina. Darius's attorney jumped up. Objection. Relevance. It goes to credibility and sworn disclosures, Simone said evenly. And third-party involvement. Judge Mercer's eyes narrowed. Overruled. Simone held up the log. Do you recognize this access card number? I don't know what that is, Darius said. Simone flipped the page. This access card is registered to Brielle Vaughn. The room shifted like air pressure changing. Darius flushed. Brielle's breath caught. Yvonne's mouth tightened. You just testified you never traveled with her, Simone said, and her access card opened the Marina gate on the date of your alleged business trip. Darius swallowed. I don't know anything about a Marina, he said. Simone's voice stayed soft. Then why does the burner phone recovered from your rental vehicle contain a note labeled Marina Code and a contact saved as B? Silence hit like a door closing. Darius snapped. What burner phone? Too quickly. Simone's eyes were calm. So you acknowledge it exists? His lawyer protested. Your Honor! Sit down, Judge Mercer said sharply. Answer. Darius stared at the table. His confidence was gone, replaced by the brittle fear of a man realizing the record is stronger than his charm. Simone asked one final question, the kind that sounds simple but forces truth into a corner. Mr. Fields, did you or did you not enter Seabright Marina with Ms. Vaughn on June 14th? Darius's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No, he said, and the words sounded weak. Simone nodded. Very well, she said. We moved to admit still frames from the Marina's security camera identifying Mr. Fields' registered vehicle entering the gate. The clerk marked the exhibit. The still frame slid across the table. License plate crisp. Brielle's profile frozen. Darius went pale. Simone stepped back. No further questions at this time, she said. At this time. Not because we were done, because we were pacing the fall. Judge Mercer called a recess. In the hallway, Darius argued with his lawyer in a low, frantic voice. Brielle stood rigid, eyes glassy. Yvonne whispered like blame could stitch reality back together. Simone leaned toward me near a window. We've cracked the surface, she said. Part 4 is where we end it clean. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just felt steady because for months I had carried my proof like a sealed heartbeat, waiting for the moment the court would finally stop asking if something was wrong and start asking how far it went. That night, alone again, I touched the sealed envelope in my bag. Inside were Malik's full analyses, signature comparisons, transfer overlays, and the email chain that still makes my skin go cold when I remember it. Use her name. She won't check. That line wasn't just contempt. It was a strategy, a worldview, an assumption that silence meant absence. He thought I would disappear. I didn't. And in Part 4, the judge will hear the truth the way it was meant to be heard. Entered into the record, sealed no longer, speaking for itself. The morning we returned, the courthouse felt different. Not louder, not busier, just colder. As if the building had already decided how much truth it could hold before something cracked. People moved in smaller motions. Lawyers lowered their voices. Clerks looked up less. Even the security guard at the entrance stopped joking. Record changes the air. Once a lie gets written down, it starts taking up space. Darius arrived early for the first time. He stood near the water fountain, with his attorney, shoulders squared, jaw clenched, practicing stability like a pose. Brielle hovered behind him, no longer curled into his side. Her hair was pulled back tight, the way people pull when they're trying to keep panic from spilling. Yvonne sat on a bench with her purse locked in both hands, knuckles pale. She didn't scan the hallway like a general today. She stared straight ahead, like a woman waiting for a verdict she cannot negotiate. When Darius saw me, his eyes went to my bag. Not my face, not my hands, my bag. He finally understood the sealed envelope wasn't theater. It was a promise made in procedure. Simone met me at the clerk's desk. Tanya Brooks was already there, sorting exhibits with that quiet efficiency that makes court staff seem invisible until they aren't. She slid forms into neat stacks, stamped a filing, then glanced at my bag again. Same sealed exhibit? She asked softly. Simone nodded. Same. Tanya's mouth tightened, just slightly. She checked the seal, logged the number, and placed it into the secure tray. It looked ordinary on purpose. Ordinary things survive long enough to matter. Inside the courtroom, the air had weight. Not the old tension, when everyone still believed this was bargaining, but consequence. Consequence makes people swallow more often. Judge Mercer entered promptly and sat without ceremony. Counsel, he said, eyes sharp behind his glasses. Yesterday's testimony raised credibility issues. We will address them today. Miss Hale, you indicated you were prepared to proceed. Simone stood. Yes, Your Honor. Darius's attorney rose too fast. Your Honor, we object to any new evidence. Judge Mercer lifted a hand. Sit down, he said, voice flat. You will object when there is something to object to, not preemptively. The lawyer sat, jaw rigid. Darius stared at the table like it might open and swallow him. Simone stepped forward with a folder that held no drama, only order. Your Honor, she said, we request permission to introduce a previously submitted sealed exhibit. It has been logged with the clerk, preserved under protocol, and it goes directly to sworn statements made by Mr. Fields. Opposing counsel started again. Objection! We have not been provided. You have been provided process. Judge Mercer cut in. The exhibit has been on file. If you assumed it was empty, that is not the court's problem. Silence settled, thick and clean. Judge Mercer looked at Tanya. Miss Brooks, he said, retrieve the sealed exhibit. Tanya rose, carried the envelope to the bench, held it up long enough to show the intact seal, and handed it to Simone. Simone didn't open it yet. She let the moment sit there, sealed, visible, undeniable, like a locked door everyone could finally see. Enter it, Judge Mercer said. Simone broke the seal with a letter opener. The paper tore with a small sound that traveled too far in the quiet room. Inside, everything was arranged the way Malik insisted, labeled, numbered, cross-referenced, no messy pile, no theatrical flourish, just facts stacked like bricks. Simone distributed copies, one to the clerk, one to opposing counsel, then faced the bench. Exhibit 1, she said. Gate access logs from Seabright Marina for June 14th, including the registered cardholder. She lifted the page. The cardholder is Brielle Vaughn. Brielle's breath caught. Not a gasp, she tried to hide it, but it sounded anyway. In court, people notice the sounds you don't mean to make. Exhibit 2, Simone continued, invoice records for slip rental and marina fees, paid by an LLC registered to a mailing suite tied to Mr. Fields' corporate, an address. Opposing counsel objected, reflexive. Relevance. Overruled, Judge Mercer said, not looking up. Simone moved to the image that ended any remaining doubt. Exhibit 3, she said. Security still frames from the Marina entrance camera showing Mr. Fields' registered vehicle entering at 6:42 p.m., with Ms. Vaughn in the passenger seat. The still frame appeared on the screen, black SUV, clear plate, timestamp, and Brielle's profile frozen in the passenger seat, turned toward Darius like she was laughing. Yvonne's hand flew to her mouth. Darius didn't move. His face looked carved from pale stone. Simone let the screen hold the room for a beat, then turned it off. Restraint makes evidence sharper. These exhibits address credibility regarding Mr. Fields' sworn statement that he did not take personal trips with Ms. Vaughn, Simone said. The remaining exhibits address financial misrepresentation and unauthorized use of my client's name. That's when Darius lifted his head, eyes shifting, not anger, not apology, calculation, as if paper could still be negotiated. Simone called Dr. Malik Grant. Malik took the stand with measured calm. He swore the oath without blinking, then sat with hands folded. Simone's questions were clean, almost gentle. Dr. Grant, you were retained to review financial disclosures in this matter? Yes. You analyzed account movement, entity structure, and authorization logs? Yes. Did you observe patterns consistent with concealment of marital assets? Yes, Malik said. Multiple patterns. He explained layered transfers, reclassification, and funds routed through entities to sever marital claims on paper. It is not consistent with routine correction, Malik said. It is consistent with deliberate concealment. Opposing counsel objected. Conclusion. Judge Mercer's gaze sharpened. He is an expert witness, he said. Overruled. Malik turned to a chart and spoke like a man reading a map. This account moves funds through 3 entities before returning under a different designation, he said. The stated purpose is reinvestment. The functional effect is concealment. Then Simone moved to the part that felt colder than betrayal, because it wasn't emotion. It was method. Dr. Grant, she said, did you review documents containing my client's name and signature? Yes. Did you compare them to verified exemplars? Yes. What did you conclude? Malik's voice didn't change. Multiple signatures are inconsistent with the respondent's known signature behavior, he said. They show repeated hesitation and line pressure anomalies consistent with forgery. Forgery. The word fell into the room like a dropped key. Everyone heard it. No one could pretend they hadn't. Opposing counsel stood. Speculation. Sit down, Judge Mercer said. Cross-examine if you disagree. Simone asked, do the logs indicate how those signatures were applied? Yes, Malik said. Several were applied digitally. Device authentication corresponds to a device registered to Ms. Vaughn. Brielle's head snapped up. Her eyes widened, then darted to Darius, as if he might rescue her from a record that doesn't care who promised what. Darius turned toward her slowly, as if he'd just realized she was not a fantasy when a witness with fingerprints. Yvonne made a small sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite anger. It was the sound of a system failing. Opposing counsel tried to cross-examine. He talked about complexity and error, about how technical evidence could confuse. Malik answered with calm precision. One anomaly can be explained, he said. Repeated anomalies aligned with timing and benefit cannot. When Malik stepped down, Simone called Tanya Brooks. The clerk took the oath and sat like someone who understands exactly what she is allowed to say. Her voice stayed neutral, her posture careful. Ms. Brooks, Simone asked, during these proceedings, did you observe anything relevant to credibility or exhibit handling? Tanya glanced at her notes. I heard a comment in the hallway during a recess, she said. Hearsay, opposing counsel barked. Judge Mercer lifted a hand. Limited purpose of credibility and context, he said. Proceed. Tanya read precise. Ms. Vaughn said, Daniel said the accounts were clean. He promised. Brielle's face drained to gray. Darius stared at the table again, as if looking down could erase sound. Simone asked, why did you note it? Because it suggested awareness of the accounts, Tanya said, and because Miss Fields's sealed submissions were consistent. Most people escalate when they're desperate. She did not. The judge nodded once, slow, like he was confirming something he'd been watching all along. Then Judge Mercer leaned forward and spoke directly to Darius. Mr. Fields, he said, you testified under oath that you did not take personal trips with Ms. Vaughn. You also testified you did not authorize transfers using your wife's name without her consent. The exhibits introduced today directly contradict those statements. Do you wish to amend your testimony? Darius opened his mouth, closed it, looked to his attorney. His attorney stared at his papers like he had never seen them before. I don't know, Darius said, and the words sounded small. You do know, Judge Mercer replied. The question is whether you will acknowledge it here, on the record. Darius swallowed. His fingers tightened on the table edge. I was protecting what I built, he said finally. Judge Mercer's voice stayed flat. What you built was not yours alone, he said. Marriage is not a corporation where one party holds all shares. Yvonne flinched. Brielle stared ahead, frozen. Judge Mercer turned back to Simone. Based on what I have heard, I am prepared to issue interim findings, he said. I will also refer potential fraud and forgery to the appropriate authorities. We will proceed to remedies. The word remedies sounded sterile. In that room, it sounded like the end of a lie. Opposing counsel started to speak. Judge Mercer cut him off. You have had time, he said. You used it to obstruct. Simone rose. Your Honor, we request equitable redistribution of assets identified through forensic analysis, reimbursement of legal fees due to misconduct, and orders preventing further dissipation. Judge Mercer nodded. No further transfers, he ordered. All relevant accounts are preserved. Any attempt to move assets from this point will be treated as intentional. Darius's shoulders sagged. His practiced posture couldn't hold against an order. Then the judge looked at me. "Mrs. Fields," he said. I stood, hands steady. "This court will not reward deception," he said, "nor will it punish silence. Your restraint has been noted." My throat tightened, but my voice stayed level. "Thank you, Your Honor." He nodded once. "Be seated." Court adjourned with instructions, but the real shift had already happened. The room wasn't managing a divorce anymore. It was examining conduct. In the hallway, Darius and Brielle argued in low, frantic voices that sounded like teeth grinding. "What did you do?" Darius hissed. Brielle's laugh came out hollow. "You dragged me into it," she snapped. "You said it was clean." Yvonne stepped between them, eyes wild. "Not here," she whispered. But it was already here. It had been here for months. It was just visible now. Simone touched my elbow. "Don't look back," she murmured. I didn't. I walked past the benches, past the whispers, past the reporters gathering by the doors like birds waiting for a spill. "Mrs. Fields, was this revenge?" "Did you know all along?" I kept walking. Silence was the only thing I was willing to give them. Outside, the light was bright and indifferent. It hit my eyes like truth does when you've been living in dim rooms. On the steps, I paused only to breathe. The air filled my lungs without resistance, and for the first time in a long time, my body didn't feel braced for impact. My phone buzzed once. An unknown number. "You think you won. You don't know what's coming." I showed it to Simone without a word. She screenshot it, forwarded it, and deleted it from my screen. "Good," she said softly. "More evidence." For a second, the message felt like a hand on the back of my neck. Not fear exactly, more like the memory of fear, the reflex my body learned during years of being told I was lucky, being told to stay quiet, being told the rules were written somewhere I couldn't see. I stared at the courthouse windows and understood something with cold clarity. Intimidation only works when you still crave the intimidator's approval. I didn't. The record was open now, and the record doesn't flinch. Across the steps, Darius appeared in the doorway for half a heartbeat, framed by cameras and shadow. He didn't speak. He just watched me leave, like a man counting what he couldn't keep, realizing the numbers were finally changing. Behind him, Brielle stood still, eyes fixed on the floor. Yvonne lingered, silent, clutching her purse tight. We walked to the car, and the courthouse doors closed behind us with a quiet click that sounded like a lock turning. Only this time, it wasn't locking me out. It was locking the lie in. The courthouse emptied the way a storm empties a street. Slow at first, then all at once, as if everyone needed distance from what had just been said out loud. Inside, the air had changed shape. It wasn't tension anymore. It was aftermath. Darius Fields stayed seated long after Judge Mercer left the bench. His hands were flat on the table, palms pressing down like he could steady a floor that no longer existed beneath him. The suit still fit. The confidence didn't. His lawyer leaned in, murmuring next steps in a voice that sounded like paperwork trying to comfort a man. Brielle Vaughn stood first. She gathered her bag with shaking hands and walked out without looking at Darius. Her heels, once sharp, deliberate, hit the tile unevenly now, like she'd forgotten how to move inside a story that didn't belong to her anymore. Yvonne Fields followed them, pearls tight at her throat, mouth pinched into a thin line. She passed me without a glance, an old habit of dismissal that landed hollow now. A woman can only command a room when the room still believes in her authority. Today, the room believed in the record. Simone Hale stayed beside me, calm as ever. "Don't stop," she murmured when the first reporter's voice rose. "No statements, no satisfaction. Let them choke on their own questions." Outside, microphones lifted like weapons. "Mrs. Fields, do you feel vindicated? Was this revenge? Did you plan this from the beginning?" I kept walking. The cold part, the part that feels like true crime when you retell it, was how quiet my body felt. No shaking, no collapse, just a steady emptiness where panic used to live. The court had spoken, but it hadn't given me closure the way movies promise. It had given me something colder and cleaner. Clarity. By the end of that week, the consequences didn't arrive with a bang. They arrived like doors closing one by one. The first door closed on Darius professionally. Simone called me the following morning. "A preservation order is in place," she said. "He can't move anything without risking contempt. And the referral, it's real. They will look." When a court says the word forgery, it stops being a private betrayal. It becomes a public problem. Emails to Darius started changing tone. I didn't need access to see it. People in his world always leaked information like gossip is oxygen. A colleague who used to smile at me at charity events stopped returning his calls. A partnership meeting postponed indefinitely. An invitation to a board dinner quietly withdrawn. The kind of social distancing that happens before anyone officially admits you're toxic. He sat in his office, surrounded by glass walls that once made him feel powerful. Now they made him feel visible. Reputation is a mirror. It only looks good when it's clean. The second door closed on Brielle. She hired her own attorney within 48 hours, not out of confidence, out of fear, because the record didn't describe her as a mistress anymore. It described her as a participant. She tried to call Simone once. Simone didn't answer. The next day, Brielle sent a message to my old number. It was short. "I never thought it would end like this." I read it twice. Then I deleted it. I didn't owe her closure. Closure is for people who didn't steal. The third door closed on Yvonne. Her power had always been borrowed, carried through her son, polished through his success, reinforced through rooms that respected the field's name. When Judge Mercer referenced deception, the name changed. It gained an asterisk. She stopped attending gatherings, stopped hosting dinners, stopped answering calls. The woman who once corrected my posture and my tone retreated into silence, because silence is easier when it's chosen. Funny how that works. Meanwhile, my life, my real life, started again in small, almost unrecognizable ways. The first thing Simone did was reopen what Darius had locked. Accounts were reclassified. Access was restored. Documents were retrieved through court orders. The process moved faster now that the illusion had collapsed. No more games, no more misunderstandings. The record had teeth. One afternoon, Simone slid a folder across her desk. "Sign here," she said. "These are the final confirmations." I picked up the pen and paused, feeling something strange. Not grief, space. I signed. My name looked like mine. No hesitation, no wrong rhythm, no one else's hand inside it. When I left her office, the city looked the same. Traffic, phone screens, people rushing. But my body moved differently through it. Like I wasn't bracing for impact anymore. That night, Keisha came over with takeout and one bottle of wine we didn't really drink. We ate on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by boxes, because I had already started planning to move. Not out of fear, out of choice. Keisha watched me for a long moment. "You're not even smiling," she said, half teasing, half amazed. I considered it. "I'm not happy," I said. Keisha blinked. "Then what are you?" "Finished," I replied. Finished is underrated. Finished is what happens when you stop negotiating with people who never plan to be fair. A week later, I walked past Seabright Marina on purpose. I didn't go in. I didn't stop. I just drove past the gate with the seahorse logo and watched the camera lens shine in the sun. That camera had watched my husband enter with another woman like it was nothing. It had captured him the way machines do, without judgment, without sympathy, without forgetting. And that's what saved me. Not luck, not revenge. Records. At home that evening, I opened my laptop and looked at the original screenshot of the cruise photo one last time. Darius's arm around Brielle, the pink sky, the caption that had vanished. New beginnings. I stared at it until the image lost its power. Then I dragged it into an archive folder and labeled it, simply, evidence. because that's what it had become. Not a wound, not a memory, a fact. Before bed, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and studied my face. Same eyes, same mouth. But the woman looking back didn't have that tightness around her jaw anymore, the tension I used to call strength. I leaned closer and said it out loud, quietly, like a promise to myself. I'm done being silent for people who don't listen. The words settled in the room without echo, because they didn't need one. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this story hit you the hardest? The cruise photo, the courtroom, the sealed envelope, or the moment the record finally turned? Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your city right now. I read every comment. And if you want more stories like this, stories where betrayal doesn't get the final word, subscribe to the channel, hit like so YouTube knows to share it, and tap one of the videos on the end screen. There's another story waiting.